Do you like wearing t-shirts? Do you like supporting ARTV? Well, I have great news for you. There is merch available, and I always forget to plug it, but it is the second link in the description. I have cool shirts like Emo, Clout Gang, logo shirts, phone cases, everything like that. They've been up for a while, but like I said, I am horrible at marketing and never remember to remind you guys. Second link down below if you're interested. What's up everyone, John from ARTV. It's time for a review of the third studio album by the UK pop punk and also other styles of music now band As It Is. Their new album is titled The Great Depression, which got its name from the period in the 1930s in the United States where the stock market crashed, but here it's referring to mental health. As It Is debuted a bold new look, something that definitely had me in questioning over exactly what they were going for. Paddy Walters, the lead singer in particular, looks drastically different. His blonde hair is what he was known for in the past, and now he's come out with eyeliner and straightened long black hair. That's obviously not important here, but I do feel like it's kind of noteworthy because I feel like he is kind of characterizing what he's playing, because this new album, The Great Depression, is a concept album. It's one that definitely deals with mental health, illness, relationships, and most notably, I would say, death. It has a character that we know as the Poet, and he deals with death and kind of talks to death like he would talk to a regular person, but he also talks to his wife and doesn't want to leave her behind, but he has very conflicted feelings. It was a very interesting concept. I was kind of sold at that, and also very intrigued by their sound after hearing the lead single, The Wounded World. It was reminiscent of the 2000s and their style of music and also their appearance, and I had to say that after seeing it was broken down into these sections, denial, anger, bargaining, and acceptance, it just sounded like a cool concept, and I wondered, could they execute it? The As It Is that we get on The Great Depression is vastly different than the As It Is that we've known up to this point. The songs definitely lie in the realm of darkness and go in a darker direction more often than not, and they often are much heavier both in terms of their sound sonically with loud guitars, fast-paced drumming, and other instrumental choices that would lead you to believe that they've been influenced by early 2000s post-hardcore bands, but also heavy in the sense that the lyrical content is something that is vastly important, especially to Paddy Walters as he penned these tracks about mental health and death. To sum up much of the sound here on this album, I would describe it as a weird hybrid between the band They Used and also Funeral for a Friend. Pop punk wouldn't really be a term that I would use to describe this album. In fact, I would say that they go for more of a straightforward rock approach on some of the tracks, and then they also have some poppier tendencies here and there on moments that don't really work out all that well. It's interesting, and obviously they still have some of the tracks that do feel like they have traces of old As It Is. The good thing here, I think a lot of young fans are going to listen to this album and see it as very helpful. If anything, it is going to start a conversation. I feel like a lot of people will be talking about the album, whether it be bad or good. Hopefully it starts a discussion about mental health. Now the bad thing, at least in that department, well, the lyrics here can go from okay to solid to mediocre to straight up cringe in places, and it makes it hard to listen to. Some songs have a fire lit beneath them and really do seem to pay homage to the 2000s UK post-hardcore and pop punk bands of yesteryear, but other cuts are quickly realized is pretty safe and unadventurous. However, this is easily the most competent that As It Is have ever sounded on a studio album, and that's a huge win because The Great Depression is very easy to listen to. If nothing else, I admire Paddy Walters and the rest of the band and their ambition. Even though I definitely have my criticisms with the record, I do appreciate that they started out with a mission and they accomplished it, at least in their minds. They have a story that came together, and even if every listener doesn't exactly get it like they're supposed to, I admire the fact that they wanted this to be an album. They didn't just want it to be about singles, they wanted people to hear it from front to back. The Wounded World was of course the first single, and I did do a track review for the song, and it's slightly not as great as I thought it was when I first listened. I was never head over heels about the track, but the repetition that just gets repeated, we're all to blame for the wounded world, that we hear over and over again, that cycle just beats you upside the head after a while, and you're like, do I even want to come back to this again? The second single, the Stigma Boys Don't Cry, fared much better in my mind. This is a fantastic song, and despite the lyrics being a bit cheesy and cliche in places, it has good intentions, and I honestly love the sound here. The big bass and the looming guitar sounds in the intro, the slow start before actually breaking into it. I think the chorus is great here, there's a nice bridge, and I like the breakdown at the end. Easily the best section of this record is Bargaining. It's part 3 and it's tracks 7 through 9, starting with The Reaper featuring Aaron Gillespie. He's known for Under Oath fame, also possibly you might know him for The Almost and his solo work, but here he provides the final chorus vocals, and while he does sound a bit rougher, it almost feels like maybe perhaps he's giving the voice of the Reaper, and death is definitely discussed on this song. It's a mesmerizing moment that honestly really surprised me with how striking and prominent the guitars were, and also how much I'm picking up on that post-hardcore sound of the 2000s. I'm definitely very fond of that style musically, and this song just proves exactly what As It Is can do when they take those influences, but also hone them to give them their own unique feel. Right after that, we move seamlessly into the Two Tongues Screaming Salvation. I love the way that it moves in, using that sample that almost feels a bit chilling. I love the use of it there, and even though I don't feel like this track is quite as great as The Reaper, which might perhaps just be my favorite song on the LP, still very solid, and it really flexes their strengths as musicians. The Handwritten Letter is so much fun to listen to. I love the choppy guitars that really just get loud, in your face, and abrasive. This is definitely something to move around to, and while it definitely does have a message at its core, this is just pure musical bliss to me. I love a tune like this, and the fact that As It Is cranked it out so effortlessly, it just really puts some of these other songs to shame. Some of the ones that definitely had more of a pop-friendly tendency, ones that don't strike as boldly. Not that they had to have an overwhelming rocking dominance to many of the songs, but just some of the ones that dumb things down a bit, like the question, the answer, I just don't feel very connected to. But then you go back to something like the Handwritten Letter, which really stands out so much, you have to wonder, how did that come, but some of the other tracks fell so flat? The opening song, the title track, The Great Depression, is something that I kinda roll my eyes at a little bit. I really don't care for the tune, even though it is trying something new musically. I guess I admire that in some odd way. I really don't like the lyrical content here. It talks about how the poet, I guess, is introducing it, and even though that is Patty Walters, it feels a little bit too similar to like real life him, and it just comes off a little preachy. Honestly, the way that it talks about things, here the song blatantly says this song might just save your fucking life. And it just makes me cringe because honestly, the songs that do save lives and relate to people so much, you don't have to tell them that it's saving their life. I was bored by The Haunting. The Fire, the Dark sounded a lot like the used I Caught Fire, and I can't get that comparison out of my head for some reason. I don't find it to be that bad of a tune, it just doesn't feel like it breaks the mold of their contemporaries. The Hurt the Hope is a tune that has grown on me. I really admire what this one has set out to do and accomplish, and the fact that it almost comes in waves and stages as the track progresses. I like the slow to start intro, the fact that it does have a glossy flair to it. It shows them mixing things up, but also showing the fact that they can do a slow burn right. I think that the vocals on the hook of this thing are a big standout for me, and it feels like Walters just genuinely being himself, something that I don't feel we got enough of on this album. Closing things out, we have the final song, aptly titled The End. I feel like it kind of leaves us on a note of confusion as the poet is thinking about things. He doesn't know what direction to go to, if he wants to go to the dark, to the light, if he basically wants life or death, to stay with his wife, or to go with death and have all of these things, all of these problems just go away. Great guitars on this tune though. They definitely rip through here. I love the drum performance, both the guitars and the drums, and even the bass. Shout out to the bass on much of this record, rumbling around, often being the star of the show in the background. I feel like all of those instruments, especially on the end, come together and just really make me think back to a time period in music in the 2000s that I'm extremely fond of. The Great Depression is a bit scattered, but its ambition and execution does the trick for those looking for a more 2000s sounding record with social commentary spread throughout. Overall for me, while I do have mixed feelings on this record, I'm gonna have to say I'm giving this a very light 3.5 out of 5. I don't feel like a 3 would do it justice. Maybe a 3.5 is slightly too much, but I don't do quarter scores, so a 3.5 it is. Let me know your thoughts on the album in the comments section down below. Don't forget to drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. If you'd like to support me on Patreon or perhaps pick up some merch, the links are in the description down below. If you want to see my last As It Is review, tap here or right here for another recent video. I'll see you soon for more on ARTV.